right, let's start this thing off. Again, you guys, welcome. We're here for another EPM Power Hour, and we're welcoming Mitchell Black from Strongside. He's an amazing guy. He's an amazing person, amazing fitness trainer, amazing just knowledge bank of healthy living and mentally and physically. So we're so happy to have you with us today. Sarah and I are going to just ask you a few questions and just try to get your feel on, or just get your take on how it is to live a healthy life.
Yeah, and if
Please.
those of you also have like any fitness questions, like this is your time to ask.
Yes.
Because we definitely have an expert on our side, and we definitely he would give you plenty of great knowledge.
Yeah, and anything that I can't answer, I'll just defer to LA.
and then I'm gonna Google it. But so I have a first question for you before we get into how we could all move on into a healthy living and just mentally and physically. I would love to know how you got to where you are now, because like we just alluded to, you're kind of blowing up right now, especially in this Roswell, this North Georgia area, North Atlanta area. How did you get to the point where you decided you wanted fitness to be your niche, your way of life?
Yeah, dude, it's been a crazy long road. I've been talking to a lot. I've been getting that question asked a lot recently, and they see that, I've done everything from Ironman triathlons to like, crazy trail races, and like, they see like all these things, and they're like, oh man, that's so cool to
Can you
like.
tell us can you tell us what an Ironman triathlon is?
Yeah, so so you do it all in one day, and it goes back to back to back, and it's a 2.4 mile swim, and then you immediately get on the bike, and it's a 112 mile bike, and then you run a full marathon, so 26.2 miles when you're done with that. And I got another one coming up in 4 months. So I just did a half Ironman 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago to get some training under my belt. Like just it was on the same course, like felt good about it. And then I got the full in 4 months. I've done 24-hour row races before. Like you get on a rower, just like you guys have at EPM and row for 24 hours. That was terrible. But I mean, it's like this like mental push. Like I'm always trying to like, I need something. I need to live in the hard stuff. I need to do the hard stuff. I need to do things that scare me. Like, but whatever. But the point of it is like, people see it now and like, oh, that's crazy. So I weigh less now than when I was 13. When I was 13, I was 5'5", I was 200 pounds, and I hated everything about my life. I remember being in second grade and I started gaining like all my weight. And I was like, what is this? It felt uncontrollable. I was just ballooning up. And there was definitely an emotional eating component where I started figuring out that I was the fat kid and girls weren't going to like me. And I couldn't fit into, I couldn't even fit into the husky jeans. I would go to like Macy's or wherever they sold those. And it was like the fat kid jeans, and I couldn't even fit into the fat kid jeans. And I had to go to like the big and tall store, and it was just terrible. And I remember looking down at myself. I was in the shower and I couldn't even see my feet. And I was like, this is terrible. Like, and I started looking at food as an outlet. I was like, girls might not like me. I can't fit into clothes. I can't play sports. I feel terrible about myself, have stretch marks. I probably stink a little bit, whatever. And, but I was like, food never points the finger at me. Food never puts me down. It always makes me feel good. I can turn to it anytime I want, and it will do nothing but satisfy me, which is weird because it's the thing that's causing me all my psychological pain. Yes. So I turned to food, and I was just like eating, and I just started gaining all this weight. And basically in 7th grade, I came home from school 3 days in a row crying. And my mom, I got a single mom. We grew up on food stamps, super poor. Like we never had anything. And my mom was always a fighter. And the first day she was like, oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry these kids make fun of you. And the second day she's like, yeah, that sucks. You're going to have to find a way to deal with that. And then the third day she was like, all right, are we going to do something about it? Or are you just going to come home crying every day? And I was like, oh my God. So I snapped. I was like, I say snap, but it's obviously a process. And I was like, all right, I got to figure out something. So I go through this whole bout of losing like 60, 70 pounds from 7th grade to 8th grade, and started getting in this really, really healthy lifestyle. And I started looking at nutrition different. I started just understanding. I mean, you're not taught what is nutrition You're just taught that maybe, I don't know, maybe you should eat less and exercise more. I mean, if that was true, I wouldn't have a job. So it's like, I started going through this whole deal. And by the time that I grew up and figured out what I wanted to do with my life, you know, I still haven't figured out what I want to do with my life, but I mean, like, you're always growing, right? I was like, you know, here's the one thing that I want to do. The one thing I want to do is I remember how terrible that I felt. And I want to dedicate my life to making sure that no other human being has to feel the way that I felt. Everybody should be empowered with decisions and knowledge that allows them to live the way they want to live. I felt trapped. I didn't know anything. I just wanted knowledge. If you have the knowledge and just choose not to do anything with it, that's on you, and that's cool. And I hope you live your best life with it. But the majority of people don't have the right information to even make the right decisions. So my job, what Strongside's all about, is giving you communities and environments and atmospheres and baseline knowledge and ways to be successful, so you don't have to live that life that I lived.
Nice. So at Strongside, you do physical training, you do mental training, you do nutrition training, you do it all?
Yeah, so our gyms, like our commercial gyms, they run on classes. So we'll run up to 12 classes a day. Each class caps at 20 people, but it's usually 16 to 18 people or so. And everything is coach and instructor led. So we focus on movement. We don't do anything like crazy. Like, we're not, I mean, it looks crazy if you've never been in before. I get that. But, you know, if you've never done anything, whatever you're looking at probably looks crazy. So we just focus on movement, get you to move and move well. And then once you can move well with load, move well with intensity, move well with variance, like there's different adaptations to it. And a lot of the mental training it stems from just accomplishing things. More often than not, people go through their day every single day not winning. That is terrible. They might be in a rut in their marriage or a rut in their life, or they're upset with how much money they make, or their kids hate them. Like, you know, like, life is hard. We want you to come into Strongside and look, ain't nothing going to be easy. Nobody's going to do the work for you. But how do we put you in a position so when you get on that rower, when you lift the weight, when you swing the kettlebell, whatever the thing is, do a push-up, that you are felt like a winner every single day. So our communities, our classes provide that atmosphere for you to be a winner. Our coaches work with you on the movement, on the expression, on you actually being able to lose 50 pounds, play with your grandkids, not have diabetes when you're 70. And then as far as nutrition goes, yeah, we've actually just revamped and are relaunching a pretty in-depth nutrition program that we're really, really proud of, that it's infinite. It's not finite. It's not eat this, not that. Weigh your food and put it in Tupperware containers. It's not that at all. It's a very, very measurable, consistent diet plan that teaches people how to eat for the rest of their life. We want this to be your first time. That's all we're about.
That's awesome. Your story definitely is very inspirational. And I was wondering, what can you tell our EPM family, those that are listening? For instance, you mentioned that you were unhappy with where you were at with your physical state. You identified the problem and then you did something about it. So what are the tips for those that are listening that are struggling to even start? Because I know the starting part is like the beginning, where they're just like, hey, I already tried the fad diet. Like, I've been trying this, you know, I've heard this, or I heard, you know, that. So how can you help our EPM family to empower them to kind of get the wheels going and stay in the steady motion? What tips or advice would you give those that are like, I don't know where to start. I try this, you know, and then like, I don't really lose a pound. I don't see a difference. And then they get discouraged. And then it's kind of like a trickle down. So what advice would you give the EPM family?
Yeah, I feel you. You just got to do something. Like, you got to start and you got to do something. And if you try to do everything, you'll wind up doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And you'll wind up getting paralysis by analysis, where you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know. Like, I'm going to go online. I'm going to get vomited with information. And like, look, just start with the basics. I don't know anybody that has ever viewed McDonald's as making them thin. I don't know anybody that said, hey, I should sleep less. That sounds like a great idea. I don't know anybody that said, if I don't work out today, I'm going to lose weight, right? Dude, just start with the basics. Do something. I'm going to walk for 10 minutes every day. Whatever the thing is, because what you want to do is you want to look at that something like brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth does not prevent against cavities. You can brush your teeth as hard as you want, and you can still get cavities. That doesn't do anything.
It's true.
Brushing your teeth for 2 minutes every single day is what prevents cavities. So how about you just try to work out for 20 minutes? Or how about you try to drink half your body weight in ounces of water? Or how about you just try to sleep 7 hours every night? Or if you feel like you're consuming too much alcohol, like I would say that the person that's starting that doesn't know where to start, I don't even want to create the thing for you. I want you to pick it. I don't want to subtract anything from you. I want you to find something that you can identify that is a struggle for you and that you could easily say, if I wasn't doing this, things would be better.
Mhm.
And then just stop doing that thing. And I'm overselling it. I'm overselling it like it's going to be easy. It's going to be, I know how hard it's going to be. It's going to be stupid hard, but that's why I'm going to let you pick it. So just pick something. And then I would encourage you to start with that something. You can worry about how many grams of this and protein percentages and stuff later. Worry about the basics now. Work out 4 times this week.
Okay, and that's true because it's something I can relate to because of the pandemic last year, I was actually struggling trying to get back on track with exercising. And one of the things I had like a trainer, but then because of the pandemic, I couldn't. So one of the things like what you just said was I made it a point to say I'm gonna do it 15 minutes every day, and I had an accountable buddy. So it's true what you're saying. So start with something new, like what you're saying. Pick whether it's you want to start with drinking more water or sleeping more or something, right? You're just saying just do something as a first step.
Yeah. If you are struggling to get started, I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen the whole, if you're struggling to get started, like it's because you're trying to pivot towards motivation, and motivation doesn't last.
Yes.
Determination and obsession last. You got to become obsessed with
Yes.
whatever the thing is. I mean, it's like it's got to be so second nature, just like breathing, just like being at work on time, like just like it's a non-negotiable. Your kid runs across the street, you're like, whoa, no, you don't do this because X, Y, and Z, right? But you can't do that by having uh by like trying to do everything, right? The everything comes later once you've built these basics. I mean, I remember when I was first starting to get into exercise, I had like a bicycle, and it was like ride up the hill. And then it was like, okay, can I ride up the hill sitting down? Because that seems a lot harder. And then can I ride up the hill twice without stopping? Like you just like build on the basics.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. That's how I'm doing myself. As far as my little fitness journey, I'm trying to cut back on I joke all the time and say that I eat like a raccoon, like because I just eat whatever. I know that the foods I'm eating aren't healthy. It's just that I don't even really know what healthy options are that I would like, aside from the obvious vegetables, but those are super yucky. So like so I'm trying to train myself and just remap my brain to eat more healthy, and have different options of food, especially seeing the pricing of healthy food seems to be up here versus down here where Raccoon City is.
Raccoon level.
Raccoon, yeah, Raccoon City, like Hamburger Helper. I know it's horrible, but I love it. So I stopped eating things like that, and I stopped cutting down on like sweet tea. My sweet tea intake. I'm from the South, so my family's from the South, so I just love sweet tea. But I haven't had like sweet tea in months, and so I'm like cutting down on things like that. But it's super hard. I don't. What do you eat? Like for instance, I don't know what to eat.
Yeah. So I think so the first off, I eat so bland. Like you do not want me to be like, what'd you eat today? Because I've been like that my whole life. Like I just don't care. And now before it was, I don't care. So it's donuts, right? Now I'm just like, all right, well, if I got to eat this, then I just, eat this. So like, I'm terrible on it. That's something that I've had to overcome. Like the first 4 or 5 years I was a trainer, like listening to people and being like, oh, okay, you don't like eating the same thing every meal. Like where I can eat the same thing every meal. You get what I'm saying? Like, so, but on a general scope, like what should I eat? So if somebody like, let's look at that same person that's like, where do I get started? Just try to eat things that you can hunt and gather. So forget about amounts. I know that there's like, I know I touched on this earlier, but if you could just eat less and exercise more, I wouldn't have a job. You would be saying that every single overweight person is a lazy sloth that eats too much. And we know that's not true. There's millions of people that work out every day. If you could just not eat and run on a treadmill, then everybody would be thin. That's like saying if you want to be a professional athlete, all you got to do is work out, and you don't need any talent. So if you're not a professional athlete, you just don't hit the gym enough. That's not true at all. And then you have to start looking at it and say, well, okay, well, like why? 94% of people undereat. I don't meet with people that say, I don't know why I can't lose weight. I'm eating 6 cheeseburgers every day. Like people know, right? But then it's like, well, if I'm going to gain weight, how come women gain it around their hips and men gain it around their belly? Or how come I gain my fat here in my belly and my friend gains their fat in their triceps? Or how come I gain fat in my legs, but I don't gain fat on my forehead? So when you start looking at that, you start understanding that it's less about the total volume of calories and more about what types of calories are telling your body to do things. It's more about an endocrine management system or hormone management system, and saying, what are these calories doing to my hormones that's causing me to store fat, and why do I store fat in some areas and not another? So I say that to say, if you can eat foods that you can hunt and gather, you can eat real food, you're probably way better off. And if you just take that concept and apply it to the grocery store, again, for a base level of nutrition, it'll work pretty well. So if you go to the grocery store and you're like, all right, I'm going to just buy a bunch of stuff. I don't know how to eat healthy. I'm going to buy a bunch of healthy stuff. Okay, just go there. Can you hunt and gather fruit and vegetables? Yeah. All right, cool. Could you hunt and gather some meat? All right, cool. Could you hunt and gather? You could make the argument on milk, but yeah, you could. I mean, the argument on milk is you can't just walk up to a cow and start milking it. So it's not like nature. Like, all right, so I get that. But you can't hunt and gather Pop-Tarts. All right. So there's no Oreo tree, and you get where I'm going. So it's like, what can I hunt and gather? Could I find this in real life? Just start there. Swear to God, just start there. We'll worry about all the other stuff later. And by later, it doesn't have to be months. It can be weeks, but you just start. Where do I start? What do I need to do? Try to only buy things that you could find in nature. You could find grains and you could find wheat, and you could find flour, you could find vegetables. Now the portions and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, I get that. But let's go to layer number 2. So healthy food being more expensive than non-healthy food. So let's go back to that example that I gave you about calories. All right. So, and I'm a good example of this because I grew up on WIC. So WIC is like food stamps and stuff. It's women, infants, children. The average person on WIC eats 800 calories a day less than the average person not on WIC. And the average person on WIC weighs 30 pounds more than the average person that is not on WIC. So they're eating 800 calories less and they weigh 30 pounds more, right? Because a lot of the government subsidized food is really, really carbohydrate rich. So like, I get that, okay, less expensive food is higher in carbohydrates. So I was giving this talk before and I said, all right, somebody holler out something. Just, yeah, I was like, and somebody's like, breakfast food. I said, all right, cool. What do you want for breakfast? And the lady's like, cereal. I said, all right, what kind of cereal? I said, you ever had Kashi cereal? She's like, yeah, that's a really healthy cereal. I was like, cool, man. All right, so I use MyFitnessPal a lot because it's a really big library of like macronutrients and all that. So I get on MyFitnessPal and I look it up and I'm like, all right, cool. There's 14 servings of Kashi cereal in a box. Have you ever gotten a box of cereal, ate it every day, and it lasted you 2 weeks? And she's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, things can go from healthy to unhealthy real quick when this unstoppable pour comes in. So it is I get that. Like if you really want to measure it, and we're not talking about organic or anything like that. I'm just saying that, like hamburger helper would be more expensive than like a grass-fed hamburger. I totally get it. But paying attention to portion size is a really, really big deal. If you said, I'm not going to snack, I'm just going to eat. I tell my clients that all the time. Cool. You can eat whenever you want. Here's the rule though. When you eat, every single meal has to have 20 grams of protein. And they're like, well, I just want a handful of Cheez-Its. And I'm like, cool, eat the Cheez-Its, but you need 20 grams of protein. So what are you going to get? Like, where are you going to get that from? Like ham, turkey, lean jerky, like whatever. you'll notice that the amount of meals that you're eating will go down. You'll start eating like 4 or 5 times a day. You'll notice that the quality of your meal will go up. You'll start feeling a lot less hungry. The blood sugar will stop dropping. It'll stay more like this. And you'll start looking more at portion sizes. So you'll start saying, okay, I'm going to get like a pack of chicken. And I'm actually going to say that I should probably eat half the chicken breast because that's probably 4 ounces. And then all of a sudden this packet of chicken lasted me a week and a half when it used to last me a week.
See, I think that's the hard part, doing the math. I guess maybe it comes second nature over time. But for me, like carbohydrates, proteins, calories, carbs or carbohydrates, all these different things, some of them are just like, it's just overwhelming. So
it is. Just start with the basics, man. Just, can I hunt and gather?
Exactly.
That's a good tip, definitely. So we're starting to get questions for those of you who are interested in actually bettering your fitness. And we do have a question here. How do you address eating and exercising women of age for weight loss? Is it so different than when you are younger to lose weight?
Is it different was the question when you're younger?
It says, is it true that when you stretch our stomach? Oh, no, sorry.
This one.
Just
How
how do you address women of a certain age weight loss?
Got it. So I think our needs vary in degree and not kind. Yes. So we have 5 pillars of functional fitness at Strongside. And those 5 pillars are things that every human would need to be able to do for the rest of their life. And it's squat, sit up, push up, aerobic capacity, and cognitive ability. So like we give the example of like if you park at the end of the parking lot.
That seems like it's broad.
Aerobic capacity, we would say, all right, you need to be able to get out of breath and sustain it for 25 minutes. Because you go to Costco this weekend and park at the end of the parking lot and walk in, that is not exercise. That's something you have to do as a human being to be alive. And if you go walk up a flight of stairs, that's a minimum requirement. Sitting up is not an exercise. Sitting up is something that all human beings have to be able to do for the rest of their life. Squatting is not an exercise. Squatting is getting out of your car, standing up from a toilet. You're probably sitting in a chair right now. When you stand up, that's a squat, right? Now, they vary in degree, not kind. So not everybody needs to squat 500 pounds, but everybody needs to squat. So when you talk about age, it's relative intensity level. Okay, look, as a human, I'm 60 now, or I'm 50 now, whatever. I'm going to have to stand up until I no longer want to stand up and go into a nursing home. Yeah. So the first thing I need to be able to do is squat. And then what I need to be able to do, or I'm using squat as an example, but pick up whatever you want. And then the next thing I need to be able to do is to train above that. I need to be able to train that above the minimum so I can preserve it for a longer period of time. Like if you want to get better at walking into Costco from the back, you should probably go walk up a hill somewhere, because walking across the parking lot on flat level will become easier, right? So when you take somebody that gets older, the first thing you want to do is you want to build baseline aerobic work. You want to say, okay, typically after 40 years old, on average, if somebody doesn't work out, their muscle mass decreases 2% every year. So you can beat that if you work out. If you don't work out, it will decrease by 2%. So you want to start with basic exercise for a long period of time. So you have to define basic, whatever that would be for you, whether that's an aerobic activity like a bike or walking or a treadmill or an elliptical or a slam ball or something like that. And you take that and you do a whole bunch of repetitions, again, relative to your fitness level, for a long period of time. I would not start somebody that's 30, 40, well, maybe not 30, but 40, 50, 60 with really high intense training on a short burst. I would start them with a moderate activity for a long time. And then I would build them into the high burst, but their body's probably not going to adapt like that, because remember, our needs vary in degree, not kind.
Real quick, I would like to say that during COVID, to get myself mentally trained to start back moving in the real world, I started parking purposely as far as I can from Walmart and stuff when they started allowing us in, so that I can just start getting more steps and stuff. And then, of course, I progressed into working out with you and all kind of stuff. But we have a question about actually, can you the hungry part? I mean, the stomach part. I thought that one was interesting.
The stomach part's a really good question.
Yeah. Where did it go? is it true that we can stretch our stomachs over the normal terms of expanding? And then she says, when I eat healthier foods, I'm constantly eating and still hungry. It becomes a job
And Jennifer asked,
feeding myself.
and Jennifer asked the same thing.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
I know always thinks I'm always hungry. I become a raccoon for eating food. What's behind this? Yeah. So 2 questions basically saying the same thing. And just personally, I find that I eat and eat and eat until my stomach sticks out. I really need to start portion control. I work it off instantly, but I feel like as I'm getting older, my stomach is allowing me to eat more food and just to accept more food.
So your stomach is supposed to be about the size of your fist.
Oh boy.
And it can stretch to 52 times its normal size before it starts to tear.
Whew.
Yeah, really weird. So like every time that you put more food, I mean, think about it, it's supposed to be this big, and like you eat like half a pizza, like it freaking, where's it gonna go? It can just like expand, and then it tries to go back to normal. It's not necessarily that the stomach gets larger that makes you hungry. It's the sugar intake that makes you hungry. So when you going back to like some questions you might ask, like, we're all about like empowering you with the right information. How come you can eat 500 calories of a sandwich and you could drink 500 calories of a Coca-Cola, but you can't eat 2 sandwiches? Like you can have a burger, chips, and a milkshake, but nobody gets 2 burgers. Like there's no way you can do that. But it's the same volume of calories. It's the exact same amount of calories. But how come you've never been full on chips and salsa, right? So the amount of sugar that you take in inhibits your body's ability to say that you're hungry or not. So you have one hormone that tells you that you're hungry and one hormone that tells you that you're full. And if you're taking in a whole lot of sugar or starchy carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates or sugary soda drinks or whatever, your body's going to get that stop signal, or not going to get the stop signal from being full. So you'll be able to continue to eat and eat and eat. And then sugar follows the same biochemical pathway as cocaine. Obviously, it's not as dangerous, but in the short term, not as dangerous. But when you try to withdraw from it, you'll get those withdrawal symptoms. So you take somebody that's like, I got to get my sugar fix, I eat candy, or, like whatever the thing is, they're eating a lot of carbs and a lot of sugar. Yeah, I mean, try to eat less than 25 grams of sugar in a day. I'll even say 50. Like if you really flip over the food label and look at it and try to eat less than 50 grams of sugar in a day, probably less than 25 would be ideal. You're going to get really hungry because your body is just giving you a hunger signal, begging you to go take in sugar because it's going through withdrawals and it's hard to fight. Now it takes about 3 to 5 days. If you can get over the 5-day hump, usually, and you've tried things like increasing water intake or increasing fat intake, like nuts and seeds and oils and stuff, if that should hopefully sustain your hunger. But after 5 days, you can usually reset your hunger hormones. So you're not it's bad. I know that it's bad.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely made it past 5 days with my sweet tea, so I'm doing good. But then I found myself lemonade.
Noted. No more lemonade.
Yeah.
So we have another question. Other than the workouts that we actually do on demand, because we have online workouts for those that don't know, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Saturday mornings. Is there any other online workout that you recommend, Mitch, that can be successful for those that are listening?
Yeah, I'll give you 2. I'll give you one that's it takes a little bit more of a financial investment, and then one that doesn't. So one that takes a little bit more of a financial investment is, dude, Peloton is really good. Like, I mean, they're legit. So I bought a Peloton as soon as the world started shutting down because we're brick and mortar, right? And I was like, I don't know anything about online training. So I'm going to learn from, because this guy's not just going to like try to reinvent the wheel. So I bought one. I was like, how do I get involved? I'm taking like every class, have our team coming over. We're taking all these classes. I was like, what can I learn and how can I mold this to pivot out to our members for the brief time that we had to go like digital? And they do an amazing job. So Peloton has a bike and they also have a runner, or you don't have to have any equipment. You can just get the app. A lot of people don't know that you can just get the Peloton app. And you can do yoga, you can do like strength training workouts, and their instructors are high. Like, I'm picky, dude. I am super picky about who we hire and when you can take the floor. And somebody will come in and be like, I've been a trainer for 5 years. I'm like, great, you're a level 1 trainer here, and you're gonna do an 8-week internship for free before you can work, because our trainers are the best. And so if I'm giving you the stamp of approval, then I mean, they do an amazing job, and how they communicate with you and how they engage with you, super cool. So they have the bike and the runner. You can literally do it without any equipment. You can take yoga, you can take strength training classes, meditation classes, walk classes. They have running classes where you can like listen to it, go outside and run, and they'll walk you through it. Super, super cool. Now, what's
monthly
take a hard, do what?
Is that a monthly subscription that you're saying, the Peloton without the equipment?
Yeah, I think it's $12 a month if you don't have the bike or the runner, and it's $40 a month if you have the bike or runner. I think that's how it works. Yeah, they make you pay for the bike and then $40 a month for the.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
Well, $12 is still good. You know, if you don't have it, $12 is actually something that's reasonable.
This is how good it is, though, is they have a 98 or 99% retention rate. So less than 1% of people unsubscribe from the app every month. That's how good it is. Like, really, I don't work for Peloton. Like, I don't even do anything online. I'm just saying, like, if you want some online training, then that's legit. And then now, if you want some, like, if you got a barbell, you got some kettlebells, you got some body weight stuff, Marcus Philly functional bodybuilding, even if you just go on Instagram, look up Marcus Philly. Number one, look, if you're a lady, you're just going to enjoy looking at him. He's a good looking dude. I mean, he is like shredded out of his mind. But he does a really good job. He does a really, really good job breaking down functionality, like what people need to be able to do. And like giving you exercises at your home. I mean, he works out in all his backyard and stuff. Really, really good stuff. But Marcus Philly, yeah, that's him. Marcus Philly, functional bodybuilding.
ILLY, Marcus Philly.
Yep, yep.
RCUSFI.
So we're putting those in the panel so you guys can see. And we have another question. How valuable is incorporating yoga in our fitness lifestyle? How often should I do yoga? What is the benefit of mix of yoga and type of fitness you provide for us? Like, what's the combination?
I love yoga. I love it.
I'm always going to go back to the basics. I think the answer is that you need to stretch. So like, let's look at running, for example. So a lot of people think lifting weights is dangerous. Lifting weights is extremely safe because usually your body's very controlled. You're contracted. You're aware of what's going on. I'm not saying people don't get hurt, but the injury rate for weightlifting is something like 1 injury per every like 1,300 hours or something like that. Which is, it's almost nothing, right? So 30 million people in America run 3 days a week or more. And of those 30 million people, 80% of those runners get an injury once every 12 months. And this is how I'm answering that question about stretching. So you go run, like, oh, running safe, I'm going to go run a mile. Okay, cool. If you go run a mile, there's probably still several thousand contractions on your body, on your bottom of your feet, on your quads, on your hips. And with those contractions needs to be some decompression. And that decompression lives in mobility and stretching. And if you know how to stretch, if you want to take the time to stretch, if you want to dedicate your time and resources to doing that, then just do that. If you like the experience of yoga, then I think that that's a really good option. I think that the benefit of yoga is that you're probably following some type of routine or person that's already been guided for you. If you're coming into the session cold, it'll warm you up, and then you'll go through your series of stretches and cool you down. And it does a neat job like decompressing your mind. So I think that if we understand that at the end of the day, we need to stretch. We all need to stretch, or you're going to get hurt. You're going to get immobile. Lack of range of motion is what hurts people. So if you're not stretching, you definitely should stretch. The experience of yoga is the sell there. That's what makes it. Yeah. And I'm not a big. I've been taking yoga a lot more now that I'm training for 1 to 2 more. I'm going to do 1 to 2 more Ironmans in the next 12 months. So like, but if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be taking it all the time. But I stretch a lot. I stretch a lot. Like, I don't know. So
Like even the tips you gave me to help with my foot, to stretch it out and to get the muscles break, whatever you told me to do. I can't remember the jargon that you use, but it's been helping. So definitely appreciate that. Are there any stretches we can do at our desks while we're working or at home that would help us loosen up?
yeah, whatever you're doing right now, it'd probably be pretty good.
Yeah, because we have a lot of people that are working remotely that are, you know, at their desk or in their house, maybe something while they're, you know, on the computer. Is there anything you can show us or demonstrate, like stretches that they can do?
Yeah. So muscles get tight anytime they get short. So just think of it that way. Like anytime I shorten a muscle for a long period of time, it's going to get really tight. So think about when you're sitting, what gets short? Probably your wrist from doing stuff like this, probably your shoulders from sitting in, and probably your hips or spine because you're leaned over. So how do we stretch those things? Like even if you just open your hand, like look at your hand, grab your fingers and start like pulling it back, like extend your arm out and stretch. Or even if you just like drop it off like a table or something and just start stretching your forearms, just sit backwards. It's not going to feel good. If you've never done it before, it's not going to feel good, but you just got to keep doing it. Go back to brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth isn't going to do anything. Stretching isn't going to do anything. Stretching 2 minutes every single day would help you out. There's a really good website or YouTube channel that you guys can go to. It's called The Ready State. And it's all free, The Ready State. And it's by Kelly Starrett. I went to California a couple of years ago, spent some great time with him. He's an amazing guy. And he wrote a book called The Supple Leopard. And I would look up like the doorway stretch, where it's like you put your arm up in a doorway and push forward and stretch your chest. There's a lot of stuff around the sitting solution where you stand up and you put your hands into your hips, like extend your spine backwards. And it's like a 3-minute routine that you do, you know, once every couple hours at work. But Kelly Starrett has a lot of good stuff that you can do, and you can type in whatever you want. The Ready State shoulder mobility, the Ready State wrist flexibility. But really what you're going to do is everybody listening to this is going to go get some information. Like you're going to look up all this kind of stuff and all that. And so then what? Give yourself like a deal. Like every I think it would be pretty challenging to say like every hour. I know a lot of people do that. Every hour I'm going to get up. I'm like, no, you're not. Like freaking, you know, like I get busy in an hour. Like every 3 hours, I'm going to stretch for 2 minutes, do 15 squats and 5 burpees. Like something, make it up, like something, right? Like that's where you start itemizing those tasks so you can be a little bit better.
Yeah, and if you have devices, some of our devices actually remind you to actually move, you know.
Yeah, I tell mine to shut up all the time. Like I'm just gonna be real with you. Like there'll be sometimes I'm like jamming on my computer. I'm not a fake person. Like I know when things get hard, and this little sucker will be like, beep, it's time to stand. I'm like, no, I'm in the middle of this email. Like, and I gotta keep going. But I know when I know what I gotta do today.
Yeah. I want to circle back to when you was talking about running. Or do you have any tips on breathing, just in general, when you're working out or when you're preparing to work out? Breathe through your nose, out through your mouth. How does it go? I can't remember.
Just breathe often. Most people don't breathe. We usually either get you're not breathing, and that's why it's challenging. We'll jump rope, and people like hold their breath, and the jumping rope so hard. I'm like, no, not breathing is hard. Like you should breathe, and then exhaling with effort. So try whenever you're doing something. Just try to find a rhythm. I know there's the whole in through your nose, out through the mouth type deal, but Mitchell at 200 pounds had never run before. I was breathing through my mouth sitting. Okay. There's no way I could breathe through my nose while I'm running. So you got to find your rhythm and breathe, whatever that is. Now, if you get comfortable with running, like I really like measuring my steps, 2 steps in, 2 steps out, or 3 steps in, 3 steps out. Like I'm inhaling for 3 steps, I'm exhaling for 3 steps. You have to have a rhythm. You can read all the books you want, but if you don't have a rhythm, it's going to go to crap. So find your rhythm of breathing first. Pay attention to your breathing. Make sure that you're always breathing. And then number 2 is exhale with effort. So find the hardest part of the exercise. What's the hardest part of a push-up on the way up? What's the hardest part of a squat when you're standing? What's the hardest part of a row? When you're leaning out and pulling the rowing cable to your chest. Whatever the hardest part of the exercise is when you want to be exhaling. That's called the Valsalva maneuver, and it helps put more air around your spine to support it, so you don't get like awkward in the midline. It helps you push out pressure so you can go from core to extremity movement, and you're much safer. So always find a good rhythm, always focus on breathing, always ask yourself, hey, how am I doing? How am I doing? Am I okay? And then number 2, exhale with effort.
And give yourself breaks, right? Like, don't, like, I know when we've met with you, Sarah and I, we've worked out with you, and oftentimes I think you say, push yourself to the limit, but then stop there, right? And then do it again, and then do it again.
Yeah, I think so like what you're talking about there is like when we'll do like some repeat intervals, and it's each session should have a desired stimulus. Like, what am I trying to get out of that workout? And there's been times where I've worked with you and I'm like, all right, today's session, and you'll remember these, like the 25-minute grinders where you're just in it, there's just sweat, you're like, oh my God. And then there's some where it's just like, look, I want you to do this for 30 or 45 seconds. I'm going to give you 3 minutes of rest when you're done, but this 30 seconds is going to hurt. And you're like, oh, okay. And the benefit of that is you get 2 different stimuluses. I mean, there's a lot of overweight people that run marathons. Just because you build up a tolerance level doesn't mean you're going to be thin. But I've never seen a fat sprinter.
Gotcha. And so how do you handle the question when people ask you, what does this specific exercise target? Like, what is?
Yeah, go ahead.
So like, what does this target?
Yeah, so it depends on like whether it's isolating or not. So a lot of people think that every exercise is supposed to target like an exact muscle, and it's kind of like, well, maybe, but like when you get out of bed in the morning, you don't go, man, I'd really feel my biceps like on that. Well, you have isolating or intentional exercises, like, you do a bicep curl, you do a tricep extension, you do a leg extension, you're gonna know. You're like, oh man, I really feel pumped up there. But again, we're just trying to make daily life easier. Like Strongside's all about training general population, normal people that want to be normally fit and do really good. They want to be uncommon amongst the common. That's the people that are working out at Strongside. So when we do something like, when we do a slam ball, when we do a rower, when we do a burpee, and somebody's like, I don't know, where should I feel this? I'll jokingly be like, your everything muscle. Like because we're trying. So those are called multi-joint movements, and multi-joint movements have a lot of productivity. And when you can only spend an hour in the gym, it's like, who cares how many calories you're burning in that hour? Can I give you something that helps you burn calories the 23 hours that you're not in the gym? That's what I'm trying to do. And when you do things that are like, I'm going to move a large load over a long distance, I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to put it over my head, I'm going to jump a rope, I'm going to go for a run, all these things that mimic like daily movement. I'm going to pick up the laundry basket. Okay, cool. Well, we don't have laundry baskets at Strongside. It looks like a slam ball. Like, you get what I'm saying? So it's like, how do we do these things that make the other things easier? Because the laundry basket's going to be there, dude. Freaking dog food's heavy. I don't care if you're in shape or not. That's just a case of water sucks when it's the one on the bottom. All right. It's just what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, that's the sweet.
That's great. Yeah. There's a question. What is the negative loading and the benefits to my body?
Oh man, we got a smart person here. Negative loading. So I was talking to
those that don't know what that is.
Yeah. So negative loading is really, really good. So I'll give you an example. Before I tell you what it is, I'll tell you why you would want to use it. Is when you're trying to do something that you can't do. So what will happen is people will start exercising and they can squat, or they can run, or they can do an elliptical, pick something out, whatever they can do. So they just do it. And then they're like automatically better at it. Because if you can squat, it is much easier to get better at squatting because you can do it. So you'll probably add weight faster. It's very quantifiable. It's like, oh, it's great. But what if you can't do a pull-up? What if you can't do a push-up? What if like you can't lift a certain amount of weight, right? And you're like, well, I can't. It is way easier to go from 3 pull-ups to 4 pull-ups than it is from 0 pull-ups to 1 pull-up, because you're going from I cannot do this thing to I have to be able to get it. So you always get stronger when the weight is going down. So like on a deadlift, you get stronger setting the weight down than you do picking it up. On a bicep curl, you get stronger on the way down than you do on the way up. On a shoulder press, you get stronger on the way down than you do on the way up. So if we can take the down phase of the movement, which is called the eccentric contraction, you don't really need to know that. That's just what it is. You take that down phase and you train over what you can do. So like, let's take a pull-up. If somebody cannot do a pull-up, but they can hold themselves, I'll have them hold their chin over the bar, and then they're going to start failing. And I'm not going to let them stop. They're going to fight the entire time on the way down. They didn't do a pull-up, but they got in the pull-up position, right? If I were to take a light load deadlift and I was to have you stand with it, and then I counted to 5, very Mississippi, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, on the way down, that would be negative loading. Or if you guys have ever seen like big bodybuilders, they do this a lot with leg press. They'll have somebody help them pull the weight up, and then they're pushing up against it as the weight comes down, and their buddy pulls it back up, and it almost looks like they're cheating. Well, what's happening is they can't lift it, but they're fighting through failure on the way down, which is the negative loading. So they're actually getting much stronger when they do that. So if somebody's doing negative loading, I wouldn't do it more than like once every 2 weeks, because it's very post-maximal. It's very traumatizing on the muscles, but it will train the body to do something it can't do. If you cannot do a push-up, get into push-up position and just start slowly lowering yourself down until you lay on the ground, and then get back up, get in that push-up position, and then slowly lower yourself down. It's the only way. You have to be in that position if you ever want to do one.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Since you mentioned some of the things I can't, what advice would you give those people that had like shoulder injuries, like hand injuries, knee injuries, that they're like, oh, I don't know if I can exercise because I've had this type of injury? What advice would you tell them to get started, or so they're not like afraid to be like, oh, I can't exercise because of this injury kind of thing, you know?
No excuses.
Yeah. I mean, so like without knowing exactly what that person's medical history is, it would be hard to be like, just do this. But here's what I will tell you. I'll tell you 2 things. Thing number 1 is that, so I raced motocross like my whole life, and I raced professionally for 2 years. And I've been destroyed. I've been life flighted to Grady. I've had 3 concussions, 1 on the 70% of my brain. I've had 6 reconstructive surgeries, plates and screws and pins and all kinds of stuff in me. That was a whole nother life. And I can tell you that moving is the only thing that makes me feel good. So like, I'm not saying that if you're injured, you should suck it up. I'm just saying that I've been injured a lot. I've had my hamstrings taken out to rebuild my ACLs, 2 screws in my knees. I've had my big toe dislocated and sticking out of the side of my foot. That was disgusting. Reconstructive surgery on this shoulder because I dislocated it so many times. And if something happens where I'm not moving, I can feel every freaking break and screw, and it hurts so bad. Moving makes me feel amazing. So I'm a big advocate of just moving. You don't even gotta call it exercise. Do something. Lack of movement has never fixed any of my problems. The more I move, the better. And then number 2, I would encourage you, and again, I don't know anything about anybody's injuries. I'd encourage you to start asking questions about yourself. Okay, so is it an injury, or is it like I got a bad hip? So like, for example, a lot of people will say I got bad knees. And then I'll say, okay, I'm sure you do. That's okay. But have you ever had surgery on them? Like, is anything messed up with them? Have you ever been in a car accident? And if the answer is no, then it might not be as structural as people think. It might just be a massive amount of atrophy. It might be that there's never been, they haven't worked out since college. They've been sitting a lot. They're 55. Yeah, if you sit a lot, standing will become very challenging, and squatting will become non-existent. And just like if you train to run, running becomes easier. If you don't train to do those things, the minimum becomes harder. So we get that all the time. People come in, I don't know if I can work out, I hurt my shoulder. And I'm like, great, cool. We're not going to touch your shoulder today. That's fine. I don't care. Like, awesome. But I do want to know if it's that my shoulder hurts because I've been sitting 8 hours a day for 20 years, or did you like break your humeral head in a circus accident and like that's really what's wrong with it? So I'm just trying to like, you want to ask some questions, peel the onion, go a little bit deeper, and then don't let that be what you can't do. Focus on what you can do. I mean, if both knees are broken, get you an arm bike. Figure something out.
Nice.
Nice.
Cool. We have one more question before we start wrapping it up. And this one is about hard gainers. People who want to gain quick and gain fast. We have a guy. He says he had to eat almost 3,200 calories a day to try to keep up with his physical regimen, and it's pretty much painful to try to eat that much and work out, to gain muscle mass and hard and fast. Is there any advice on gaining mass hard and quick without having to take in such large amounts of food and safely and naturally, of course?
Yeah, you might just have to take steroids. Like, I don't know, man. Like, but no, 3,200 calories a day is not anything, actually. Like, if you want to add mass, if somebody's trying to add mass,
Yes.
adding mass, now, not emotionally, losing weight might be more emotionally challenging than adding mass, but adding mass might actually be more physically challenging than losing. Like when those people are like, oh, I'm really skinny or I want to get really big, it's freaking hard. So I would take your body weight, and at minimum, I would take your body weight and multiply it by 14. And that's how many calories you want to eat in a day at minimum. I'd probably do 16 to 18. Like if you're really trying to add some mass, and like 60% carbs, like peanut butter and jellies before bed. I mean, and it's hard because that person is like, people hear that and they're like, oh man, I wish that was my problem. No, you don't, dude. No, you don't. Because I've been on 5,500 calorie diets and stuff, like, and it's just, you feel terrible. You're hungry all the time. Like you're basically fasting while eating because your body gets used to like burning so much, and you're like, oh, next meal, and then have to train to burn all that off. It's extremely challenging. But if you don't like eating, BSN, so BSN does really good mass gainers, and it's like 700 calories in a scoop or two of it, and it's like 60, 70 grams of carbs. But if you want to add some mass really quick, take your body weight, multiply it by 14 to 16, eat 5-6 meals a day with 60% carbs.
Nice. Well,
now you're gonna get fluffy when you do that. You will get very fluffy, and you're gonna need some bigger jeans, but it will build the underlying muscle tissue to like really get up to size. And then when you got 8 weeks out from that cruise, dude, just do a bunch of cardio and you'll be a lean, vascular. Now, with that being said, a little pro tip: when you're getting like really, really lean, like let's say whatever lean is for you, and you're like, oh man, I want to go to the beach or I want to go whatever. If you can just carb deplete, like really watch your carbs all the way until you go. And then when you go to the beach, eat a bunch of sugar right before you go on the beach, and you will be a jacked dude.
Whoa.
That's what all the bodybuilders do behind stage. Like a lot of people don't know that. They think they just carb deplete. And if you've ever been on the backstage of like a fitness modeling competition or a bodybuilding show, it's like ice cream and Snickers, and because it's a vasodilator. So like you do all that, and then you start like doing a bunch of push-ups or like a bunch of band stuff, and all your veins just like pop out. Crazy.
Nice. Well, we have more questions. We could probably do this for another hour and a half, but we can't go. We got to wrap up our Empower Hour live. This was awesome. This was super amazing and super informative. My watch is telling me to be active. It's vibrating. Yeah. It said I nailed it just by doing that. I guess I was close. But thank you so much, Mitch.
And thank you for those that have participated and asked questions. It seems like probably we'll do another session since the EPM Fit seems to be the interest here. Yeah. So we definitely appreciate those that ask questions and were participating.
Yes, and everyone, please follow Strongside Mitchell on everything, right? Instagram, Facebook, the moon. Everywhere.
Yeah, we're not on the TikTok. I can't get behind that. I'm trying. So it's just look up Strongside on Facebook, and bam. And our logo is just this S, but we're on Facebook, Instagram. You can type in Strongside, but it's Train Strongside on Instagram. And then all that's on there. Yeah. So we're Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We got a ton of stuff on YouTube. But just type in Strongside on YouTube.
Podcast also?
Oh yeah, check that out. I forgot. The Strongside podcast. The last one I did, we just put up our last episode. I mean, I don't know what a lot of views is on a podcast, but I felt cool about it. In like 3 days, there was like 1,200 listeners or whatever on the last one. And I broke down. So it's episode, not the one that went up yesterday, but the one before that. I think it's episode 32. Or we haven't done that many podcast episodes. It's 3 tips for better nutrition.
Nice.
And I broke it down to like 3 simple things, just like 20 minutes long. I think it's episode 32, but that's on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever. Would really appreciate a 5-star, but yeah.
Yeah, we got you. Hey, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been great.
Thank you.
And
You
of
guys
course,
have a great weekend.
yes.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Mitch. All right, bye.